2. Welcome back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Amidst all of our baseball conversations around here about the woeful Orioles and the future of the franchise, lo and behold, we have even more fake football coming up in Philadelphia this week. I'm on the fence. I mean, first off, Lenny Kravitz is playing the Met on Thursday night in Philly. So, first off, I love Lenny Kravitz. My wife loves Lenny Kravitz. The Met's a place I haven't been. But somewhere along there, we're playing some fake football on Thursday night, and I hope it's better after these practices than what we've seen in the recent weeks. This guy has been the Eagles insider. He's one of my favorite dudes. I always pronounce his name wrong, so I make sure it's Spadaro, not Spadaro. He is Eagles insider, and if you go there, you see the ultimate joy. Dave, I know you a little bit, and as much as I'm all goobed up about the Ravens and 2 rings and 2 parades, no one had more fun with the Eagles. I mean, no one, literally, Lori, Peter, nobody had more fun with the Eagles championship than you, so I applaud you, and that's why I love having you on, man.
Thank you. I mean, it was, I've got 2 children, and I love them dearly, but it didn't take 52 years to have kids. It took 52 years for the Eagles to win a Super Bowl. I was the fortunate MC of the Super Bowl, and it was the time of my life. And you know, honestly, when you talk about the culture of a city and how sports relates to that culture, Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl changed everything in Philadelphia. And, you know, we all know the reputation of Philadelphia Eagles sports fans, Philadelphia fans in general. It took the edge off so much. And so now the fans are back for more, and they deservedly, understandably think that this Eagles football team has a real chance in 2019.
You know, when you say take the edge off, I want to talk to you about this afterglow, because we got together last year and, you know, we don't play very often and whatnot, and we're more consumed with disliking the Redskins or laughing at them around here and worrying more about the Steelers and, you know, what the Browns might be up to. So we got bigger fish to fry, but I come to Philly all the time. I mean, I'm up there for concerts. I was up at Camden for Hootie, up at the Man in a couple of weeks for Robert Plant, so the Stones, I mean, all that stuff. So I get up there and I feel it out, and you see the edge is off a little bit. I mean, I sort of agree with that to some degree in that there is a halo of 5 years of what comes next. And I coined this one back in 2001 after we won and Elvis Gerback was our quarterback, that you get about 6 or 8 weeks into the next season and suddenly last year's a long, long time ago, right? Like that parade is real and it's tangible, but it doesn't have anything to do with whether the team's going to be 10-6 or 14-2 or, God forbid, 6-10 this year. You're sort of on your own. Run me through where the Eagles are right now, because I saw the quarterback who won your championship 2 weeks ago wearing the headset down here for the Jacksonville game.
Well, I think this. I think that, look, everybody in Philadelphia, in those early 2000s when Andy Reid's teams went to the NFC Championship 4 straight years, reached the Super Bowl in the 2004 season. But going into that 2004 season, they had traded for Terrell Owens. They had signed Javon Curse. And the level of geekdom from Eagles fans was at its all-time high. Honestly, the expectation was incredible. I think that this offseason, this feeling right now, matches that feeling in 2004. And not since 2004 have Eagles fans felt this kind of expectation. Even when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, nobody expected the Eagles to do what they did. I mean, they expected a jump in improvement with Carson Wentz in his second year, Doug Peterson in his second year. But the fact is the Eagles had gone 7-9 the previous season, and so there wasn't that we're going to win the Super Bowl feeling. This fan base believes that this team has the championship pedigree. They've done a great job addressing the roster all the way through Saturday when they added Josh McCown as the ageless backup quarterback. I mean, they've really done a lot with what we thought was just a little bit of salary cap room. They've been extremely creative, inventive, generous, and they've manipulated the salary cap to the point where this roster, Nestor, is absolutely, I think at this point, and it's at this point I get it, at this point better than any Eagles roster I've ever seen.
Well, in this case, these practices and what they represent, and look, all the coaches want to get together, and we've beaten up the preseason pretty good around here the last couple of weeks. Having had both of our games, nobody came. No one cares. As long as nobody gets hurt, Lamar runs around, we all hold our breath, and Tavon Young's gone sort of kind of for the season with the neck injury that we've seen around here. That's the August update for us, but these practices have sort of replaced the games, right? Like, we saw the Rams come here last year. We go to the game, nobody plays. 2 weeks ago, Jacksonville, they come up here, they kick it around for a week, and nobody plays. And now we're into the second one, and obviously John and Doug have this relationship, and it's close, it's nearby. It's awesome that we're playing in Philly and in Washington on grass instead of on the concrete from 20 years ago that we used to have to play on, and canceling games up there at the Vet and all that nonsense.
Yeah, I was there for that.
We all were, man. I mean, not that I'm ever disappointed that they cancel a preseason game. But I'm trying to figure out why the hell I'm getting in the car, driving 95, 2 hours to come up there to hang out, to talk to, the kid from Penn State after the game for 30 seconds. Are the pretzels better in the press box? I mean, be honest with me, Dave. Talk me into coming up there Thursday.
I'll tell you, it's interesting. We all focus on, is Carson Wentz playing, and that's kind of the focus around the league. But the Eagles played most of their defensive starters in Jacksonville last week for the first couple of series. And while that doesn't get the attention of the quarterback, they played their starting defense. They played their starting running backs, Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders. I mean, they didn't play their wide receivers necessarily here. They didn't play the offensive line, but there are starters on the field. And I think I agree with you. I mean, coaches are now using preseason games to evaluate the bubble players, the players who are, second, third-year players who want to get a little bit more reps. Maybe a player who's coming off injury, get him a couple of reps in a game situation before the regular season. And I think that's fine. I mean, I understand that philosophy, but you're not getting the headliners like we did in the old days in that third preseason game. You're not getting the starters for the Philadelphia Eagles for one half. I just do not see that happening.
Well, and in this case, what they're trying to accomplish in these practices after having 2 games, it feels a little late to be doing this, right? But it feels like they believe this makes them a better football team, right? And I would think both of these sets of coaches have a pretty good idea of who those 5 to 8 guys are on the edge of the roster, that they're trying to figure out who the 4th tight end or the 6th wide receiver, whatever that thing is, that they get that together. But the coaches have really valued these practices in some way where they feel like they get something done.
Absolutely right. And for the week with the Eagles and the Ravens, no tackling, although full pads. And look, if you're Doug Peterson and you've just seen Nate Sudfeld go down with a broken left wrist, Cody Kessler go out with a concussion, are you going to play Carson Wentz with Jordan Mailata, who 2 years ago was an Australian rugby player who'd never played football until last year, as your starting right tackle, and Andre Dillard, your first-round pick, as your blindside left tackle? Are you going to throw Carson Wentz out there? I mean, that's just lunacy. So they do. It's a much more controlled environment in these practices. Quarterbacks wear the red jerseys. You can't touch them, but they get the game tempo and they get to work some of their camaraderie and chemistry and timing with their receivers, and they get to see defenses playing at a fast pace, but they know they're not going to get hit. So I get it. The objective here for the NFL, it goes back to ratings. It goes back to scoring points. You score points when your starting quarterback is on the field all 16 games. And that's the goal for the Eagles, at least, getting into September against the Redskins. Carson Wentz needs to be the quarterback on the field.
Dave Spadaro does all things Eagles, even sings the Fly Eagles Fly song. There wasn't even like a song back in the 80s when Buddy was up there. By the way, man, I found my old Buddy Ryan tapes from 1997. Buddy and I and LT did a television show together, and I took this summer kind of off in July and did this Hall of Fame thing after 29 years of doing this. I found all these old things, but man, Buddy told me, they still love me up in Philadelphia. I still get letters up there. They love me up there. And I'm thinking of all that the Eagles have represented, and this being the team that you think is the most. I mean, I would put some of those Randall teams, and Baldinger might come in and jump in, sick of him and those guys as well, talking about those Gangrene teams and Reggie and Jerome and all of the Keith Byers, all that, those guys. But you love this team. Give me a primer. Talk this team up as though when I'm in Miami, I'm going to have to get the hell off the beach because all the Eagles fans are going to be down there in February. Tell me how that's going to happen, Dave.
Well, I'll tell you that the Eagles, you could talk about the old days where the defense started and the offensive line was in tatters from one year to the next. And what the Eagles have done in this offseason, they addressed every position, no matter if it looked good. I mean, they would bring it. Look, they drafted Andre Dillard, even though the offensive line is among the league's best already. The plan is not for Andre Dillard, who's the first-round draft pick, to play this year. It's to back up Jason Peters. It's to learn from a player who's eventually going to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The offensive line is great. The defensive line, getting back a player like your old friend Tim Jernigan, who went through free agency, didn't find an offer that he liked. They get him back the day before the draft. He's got a lot to prove, and he comes in as the third tackle.
Dude, he gets passed around like hot potato, right? And
it's unbelievable. It's that back injury that he had. It really, in the eyes of the NFL, he is damaged goods. So he comes in and goes, I need to play well this year, or I'm not going to get that next big paycheck. And they've done that throughout the roster, whether it's Andrew Zendejo at safety, whether it's Orlando Scandrick at cornerback. We'll see if he makes the team. Whether it's Malik Jackson and Tim Jernigan at defensive tackle. They bring in a host of young defensive linemen on the edge to replace Chris Long and Michael Bennett. The offensive line is stacked. They trade for Jordan Howard, and yet they use a second-round pick on Miles Sanders. They go out and get Deshaun Jackson to bring that speed element. They have a quarterback room that they feel good about. Then they bring in Josh McCown. So, I mean, across the board, they have addressed the roster. And what they have now is a roster that is really deep, that they've had so many injuries, as every team does, that it looks like they can withstand another rash of injuries at most positions and really kind of play through all that during this long NFL season.
Tell me about Carson Wentz and his unquestioned now leadership, right? I mean, there is no co-pilot around. You can say what you. I mean, Josh McCown, not a bad co-pilot from that perspective, but the fact that 16 plus 4 or 3 or 4, wherever your mindset is, healthy through all of this. He's always seemed like such a level good person, and I know from your ownership down and the last disaster of the last head coach, and it still has me Googling emotional intelligence and literally trying to come up with my own definition of emotional intelligence that was brought up from your owner. But that's where Carson Wentz kind of becomes this calming guy. He hasn't won the big one, right? But he's won enough big ones to let you believe that you're in good hands?
The only reason he hasn't won the big one, I think, and I think that's the feeling the Eagles have, is that he's been injured. And that's really the only question with Carson Wentz. It's not, hey, is he good enough to play? It's not physical, does he miss It's, can he stay healthy? 2 years ago, the knee injury in the game against the Rams, he goes out, Nick Foles comes in, Foles magic. Last year, he goes out with a back injury, Foles comes in, turns the season around, they go to the playoffs, they go too deep. So Carson has all of it. He's got every bit of game. He's got the mobility, the vision, the anticipation, the intelligence, the arm strength, everything that you want. But the question is, can he stay healthy? The Eagles really need him to stay healthy for an entire season. So, Nestor, it's not a question of if with Carson Wentz. It's just a matter of, will he be able to stay on the football field? Because he's got so many weapons around him. The Eagles can beat you in a lot of ways. They've got 2 outstanding tight ends. They've got 3, actually maybe 4 now, with rookie J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as their wide receiver, another second-round draft. They're deep at wide receiver. I mean, they're just deep. They've surrounded Carson. The objective in the offseason offensively was to make life easier for Carson Wentz, and they've done that. And then they've made life easier in the quarterback room now, adding a veteran of 18 NFL seasons or 18 professional football seasons who knows everything, who's a calming influence, who can add another pair of eyes that are just as valuable as a coach's eyes during the course of a game on the sidelines. I mean, it's a very, very good situation, a promising situation for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll go back to that. They have the most talented roster on paper, and they don't play the games on paper, but on paper that I've ever seen for the Eagles.
Dave Spadaro joining us here from Filthy, where the Ravens will be hanging their hat for the next couple days up there, cheesesteaking it, pretzeling it up. Thursday night we'll be up there. Look, I haven't had Schwartzy on in a long time, even since he won the championship. It just is where we are and where we need to be. But how's he doing? I mean, defensively, and not just him, but I think the coaches having 1 and 2 years later, there's a real continuity in sort of the program there now, right?
Do you think, if I said this, you tell me honestly, do you think that if I told you that Jim Schwartz seems at peace?
He's mellow? What? No
yeah,
way.
he's a little bit more mellow. Now, look, Jim Schwartz is still going to be that, hard scrabble kind of, not miserable, but he's certainly got some attitude, as we say in Philadelphia. But he's really in a good place here.
Well, you know what? Maiden and Priest both went on tour this year. That probably calmed things down around there.
Well, he's not asked every day about being a head coach. He's disappointed. He just feels like he's a great, one of the NFL's best defensive coordinators, and he's got a good group here. A, because Eagles should score a lot of points. B, he's got some firepower up front. Defensively, it all relies on the defensive line, and he knows he's got to bring the pressure. They've got really good edge players. They've got outstanding interior defensive linemen. Everybody knows the system for the most part. I mean, it's an experienced group. They've got excellent leadership. Malcolm Jenkins, one of the most versatile safeties in the game. They get Rodney McLeod, a Baltimore native, coming back from knee injury. He's eyeing up September 8th as his debut against the Redskins, coming back from that knee injury suffered last year. So, Schwartzy's feeling good about things, but he's a little bit of a, he's an irascible kind of like, never content guy. But I've seen a little bit more just kind of settled in. I don't want to say Jim Schwartz is happy per se, because that would be almost blasphemy, but he just seems really very comfortable with where he is professionally and where he is with his football team and in his life. He just seems like he's in a good place.
I would think he would say, that's the Arbutus in me. That's the Mount St. Joe coming at me or whatever. I guess last thing for you on this is, did Joe Douglas back up the brink? How many of the scouts did he pull out of there? Since the last time we got together, I mean, between, let's see, Corey and Torrey and all these guys, Schwartz is still there. Joe Douglas was my boy. But, moving on to the Jets, this is part of what happens in the upward mobility of scouts and GMs and talent evaluators in the league, right?
Yeah. Joe Douglas had it coming. He was in demand for a couple of years. Got an offer he literally tried to refuse. The Jets would not let him refuse that. And he got the deal of a lifetime, 6 years, big money, and he's got a quarterback to work with in New York, so he's got a chance to make it work in New York. And he did take a couple of people with him. Howie Roseman anticipated that. You have to. They keep Andy Weidel. They keep Casey Weidel. They keep a lot of the core intact. They feel really good about their camaraderie in the personnel department. I mean, the Eagles right now are just a very strong, cohesive, confident, hardworking group from a personnel standpoint that they're going to keep, but they're going to keep challenging this roster. So they're not done yet building the roster, but it's a darn good one right now. And if they can get out of these next 2 weeks without any major injuries, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the NFC in 2019. Joe Douglas, we all wish him well. We love him, but he's with the New York Jets now. That's for you guys to deal with in the AFC. And we all have confidence that he'll build a really good roster in New York, but right now it's all about the Eagles competing in what's going to be a very tough NFC East with the Cowboys, and in the NFC with teams like the Rams and the Saints and the Seahawks. Really good competition this year in the NFL.
Well, everybody's trying to chop down the Belichick tree there. Good luck with that, Joe D. Last thing for you, this is the opportunity I'm giving everyone here this summer to put their foot in their mouth and talk about where the Ravens will be with Lamar Jackson. It's been a fun little off season of who believes, who doesn't believe, who's saying something that if he's still playing again in January, and we're talking about being in Miami with this exciting razzle-dazzle Navy offense where, he's going to chuck it, he's going to duck it, he's going to run it, he's going to avoid linebackers. I don't want to say skeptical, but it ain't ever worked before, right? I mean, but...
Well, look, my perspective is that I've seen that kind of quarterback more than once. Randall Cunningham. To a degree, Donovan McNabb. To a significant degree, Michael Vick. And what you find is that defensive coordinators spend an entire offseason figuring it out, how to contain the legs of Lamar Jackson. So then you find out about the Ravens and their coaching staff and their ability to deliver a counterpunch. So if they defenses all of a sudden, for example, start mush rushing or whatever they do, or they blitz. I remember distinctly Michael Vick in 2010 had a great season, great MVP kind of season, rescue of the year. Late in the season, the Eagles are playing, I believe it was the Raiders. Somebody comes rushing off the edge, and they got to Vick, and it was like, oh my gosh. Immediately, teams figured out how to play Michael Vick, blitz him, and he couldn't handle it. And so we'll see how Lamar Jackson handles when you understand that these defensive coordinators are really smart guys. They've spent an entire offseason trying to figure out to take away your strengths. Well, how do the Ravens counter that? That's the big question for the Baltimore Ravens.
Better throw the ball better, right? Literally, right?
You have to throw. You have to be able to defeat defenses with your arms. You cannot live on a quarterback running. It has literally never worked, right, in the history of the NFL for a sustained period of time. You can get one-year magic, but they don't see Lamar Jackson. They see this kid as a hardworking franchise quarterback who's going to be great for a number of years. Well, you better figure out how to defeat what's going to come from defenses, and you're not going to see any of that until week number 1. They're going to come after Lamar Jackson. They're going to try to take away the legs, and we'll see what the Ravens do to counteract that.
Dave will dust them off all week, trying to get nobody hurt up there through this this crazy fake football stuff. Plug away, man. Tell everybody about your podcast and all the. I got Eagles fans. I mean, listen, I don't brag about the Eagles fans I have down here, but I got them, So
no doubt about it. We've got a great podcast, the Eagles Live Podcast, which will soon be named Eagles Insider Podcast, and we really try to get personal with the players, and they've been very responsive. Players, coaches, front office people. If you want to know everything about the Philadelphia Eagles, not only on the field but off the field, check out that podcast. And then PhiladelphiaEagles.com in our app. We cover it every day, all day, better than anybody. Make sure you're with us. And, hey, by the way, Eagles fans already know this, and they're already with us. Great fan base. And everywhere we go, the stands are loaded with EAG, LES Eagles fans, and I know that makes you sick.
Yeah, with Kelsey's crown from the parade, is that on display anywhere? I mean, do the Eagles have that on the club level or something, or no?
I think that's in like the great sports speeches Hall of Fame, wherever that is. I mean, Jason Kelsey is the crowned king of Philadelphia for the rest of his life. When the Phillies won the World Series in '08, it was Chase Utley and his. He kind of had a little profanity in there.
Yes, he did.
But Jason Kelsey blew that away with the greatest sports speech that Philadelphia has ever heard. And by the way, a pretty good football player, 2-time All-Pro.
Yeah, I saw him in the restroom the night after the party, and it was like the parting of the sea. All the Eagles fans got out of the way to make sure that he didn't have to wait in line at the restroom at 1:30 at the team victory party. And as I told you last year, that's real respect. That's when you're a man about town, that you've won a championship.
That's right.
When guys get out of the way and let you go to the bathroom when they got to go, there's mutual respect. That's it, especially with Philadelphia. I'm talking about. Hey, and it was a cold night in Minnesota, as I remember it. We'll try to lace them up here this weekend to keep everybody healthy. Always great to visit with you. Always great to be in Philadelphia. And, by the way, where's your favorite cheesesteak? Where would you direct?
My favorite cheesesteak is none of the places that you would know about. My favorite cheesesteak.
That's the one I want to know about. Then there's
a lunch truck right in front of the hallowed Palestra. Where the Palestra.
I've never seen a game at the Palestra. Dick Girardi and I have been going back and forth about this for 30 years.
Yeah,
okay.
The greatest cheesesteak is a lunch truck out in front of the Palestra, and then my second one is a place kind of in the hood called Vincent's on Lansdowne Avenue. They have the best. So I stay away from the more acclaimed ones. Although they are good, they are for tourists.
Vincent's, I see this right here. See that I could go to Vincent's if I was going to like the Man, right? I mean, not far, right? If I was going to the Tower, it wouldn't be that far, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And then, so the other one is called Frida's, FRITA' lunch truck. I'm not sure if you can find that online, but their cheesesteaks are to die for.
See, this is, you ask a local, you get a local. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's exactly right.
One day I will climb the Rocky Steps and I will dance up there. I still have never done that. My wife wants to take me up there and act like a goof one day. So we will do that for Robert Plant next month. And in the meantime, we'll watch fake football on Thursday night. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Nestor.
Dave Spadaro, my man, Eagles Insider. You can find him out on the Twitter thing as well as at PhiladelphiaEagles.com. E-A-G-L. It'll be all over with on Friday. Let's just stay healthy. Luke is amongst all of us, monitoring all things Ravens and Orioles. You can find us out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault all week long. Baltimore Positive, Ben Carden, joining us in Catonsville at State Fair on Thursday morning. Don Moeller and I up for Baltimore Positive now 41 episodes deep with Chris Van Hollen. You'll hear that around here. You can find it all in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn radio app. The morning newspaper ships digitally. We are updating the morning newspaper, adding new stuff. You'll see it right around Labor Day, as well as an upgrade to our website coming next week. I've been hard at work all summer long, doing more than just Hall of Fame stuff and getting ready for football season. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. Streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.